The churchyard is a sacred space. The tombs and gravestones are all in place. The bats in the belfry are there without cause, and the next funeral may well be yours. So make space, your wake needs a host. It's Pebbles playing Planet Coast.
Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, but you can call me Peter, and welcome back to our Halloween Park series here in Planet Coaster 2. Now, in the last episode we started our final area of the park over here, our lovely little churchyard, and we got these two rides in the Bats in the Belfry Drop Tower and Mausoleum, our lovely little Zamperla Nebula over here. Now, before we get on with what we're going to do today, let's quickly turn on the lights. There we go, and yes, so as you'll see, you can see this all in plain daylight. You can see that I've added just a few more trees and that off camera just to kind of make this area feel a little bit more alive when you're down here. And we are moving over here for today's episode where we are working on our final ride, and that is a dark ride, but we will get more into that as we get into this. So, let's start that time lapse. Yes. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to... Honestly, it is a bittersweet day. This is the very last time lapse of this series, which is weird to think about. You know, it's been such a big part of the last month for me, kind of coming in, making these videos, and now, well, we're on the last one. Well, I say that, there's still one more episode to come, but that's tomorrow's problem. But while we're here, let's not delay. What are we doing today? Well, we are putting our last ride in the park, and it is in the fashion of a slightly spooky themed park. It would be simply wrong to not put in some sort of haunted house style dark ride or something like this. And the way that we are doing this today is through the tried and true classic. That's right, an Omnimover. Now, possibly the most famous case of an Omnimover is the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, well, the various Disney parks around the world, which is fun. The one I have most experience with is Phantom Manor over at Disneyland Paris, and as I say, this is where we are going today with an Omnimover style ride. And what is the idea? Well, obviously, we are under the ground here. We've spent all of this time in this park and in this area, kind of building above ground. You know, we've got the church, we've got the mausoleum. What else do we need? And I thought, it's similar to a mausoleum, but let's do something with a crypt. And what are we doing with this crypt in particular? Well, the idea behind this is that you are coming down into this crypt, and then it takes you through the underground world of whatever spooky exists down there, and all of that. And I say that as if I don't know what we're doing. I know exactly what we're doing, but we have yet to properly figure that out. And I thought I'd do something different in starting with the exit today. Well, the entrance and the exit, which is quite fun. And the reason that I'm starting here is because I knew what I wanted for the entrance, and I thought actually getting that and the exit in first would be such a good idea. As you're seeing here, we are putting in some keep pieces, and that is because I wanted you to descend into this sort of crypt as you're, you queue up around this bit, which again we'll get onto later of what the rest of the queue is, because that's quite cool and I like what it is, but I don't want to spoil it. So there's that, and then that obviously goes into this. You enter a crypt, you come down into the ground, and you enter the station where you board your Omnimover. And that is where kind of the idea behind this this little queue building is. So that here we are trying to build our own little crypt. I almost said mausoleum. I mean, they're roughly the same thing, I believe, but this is supposed to be more crypt than mausoleum, because mausoleum's the other side. But coming in and getting all of the same pieces we were playing around with the last episode, we're starting with these buttresses, which, if you'll remember, cast your mind all the way back to the last episode, served me quite well in the church. And we are just bringing them back here to add a bit of trim to each of the sides, and again to add a little bit of variety, just to make it feel a little less like a box, which we, get rid of, and instead we go for these curved ones, because we haven't used them yet, until now when, we are using them. But there we go, those are all in, and it looks different to how, the other set did, and it looks different to anything we've got in this area, and I think that's a good thing. Now we're just bringing the ground in, smoothing it all out, and making sure it all looks good. Now coming into here, you can see me playing around with the path and where it is, and what we're doing with it, but there we go. Now, returning back to our crypt, we're going for some of these roof trim pieces, which we've actually flipped upside down, and they're acting more like a roof than anything else. And, I was going to put a roof on here, but it didn't necessarily look right. I thought, actually, it'll look better with a flat roof, so let's go for a flat roof, but let's put some of these ridge tiles on there, just to add a bit of trim. And then coming into the inside, we're just sorting out kind of where the walls are, and these divides are, and obviously we don't want any of this in here, but we'll sort that out later, as first we need to make a layout. Now the fun thing about this ride is it moves very, very slowly, which I figured out the hard way when I made my first Omnimover in my very first kind of park in this game. It was a Viking themed park. I don't know if I've spoken about it before, but it was a Viking themed park, and I had the idea of making a dark ride themed around sort of the pillaging of a village, if you will, and I used this ride type, and the problem with that was, it was a brilliant ride, but because the ride goes so slow, it took about 20 real life minutes to go through, and that is one of the biggest mistakes that I've made while playing this game. And I had some really interesting ideas with it, but it just didn't work out. So instead, we are making a much smaller track. It's only a few pieces long, and I still think it comes out to about 4.5-5 minutes. But that is fine. Now coming in to actually build these station buildings, we are using a lot of these keep walls. Again, exactly the same as we did upstairs. We are coming in, we're placing down these walls, and we're sort of, again, making it feel very much like you're in a crypt. And I can tell you that some of the theming around this crypt does happen off-screen, but what all that I do off-screen and between episodes and whatever is put down some pillars and put down a couple of coffins. Now, coming down into the layout, it feels very claustrophobic to have the tunnel be that, constricted, as it were. So instead, we take it and we make it a little bit, wider, and then we make this. So, it is a staple of kind of slightly spooky dark rides to have some sort of spinning tunnel. It doesn't happen everywhere, but my favourite example, and I've mentioned it before on this channel, is the ghost train at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and it has a segment where you go through a tunnel like this. It's also present on the Alice in Wonderland ride at the same place, but it is this. It is the version from the ghost train that we're looking at for this tunnel, and obviously the version in the ghost train is all themed around this this tube tunnel, which we don't necessarily do here, But what we do with the spinning tunnel, I like, but I think that's all an off-camera thing. So you'll just have to wait till the next episode to see what it looks like in there, which is quite fun. Now, coming to the start of this ride, I didn't necessarily want it to all be sort of taking place inside a crypt, because that's very... it's very boring to have it all be these walls and just a couple of coffins and what have you, and there's not really enough spooky pieces in the game for it to make sense like that. So instead, we're going through a couple of different scenes underground, and this is our first one, and we are making a bit of a mine shaft. Now, I've made sort of something like this in the past for my for Spook Manor in our challenge park, which was a fun ride, but the mine section wasn't exactly the best of budget, but then that's the point of the park, it's not to have a budget. But here it feels a lot more sort of in there with what we're doing with the mine, and then coming in, we're just placing some pickaxes down to add some ambiance, I believe that's the word. But yes, putting that in, and now we are skipping forward to much later in the process. You know, I've got the entirety of the inside themed up, but it would be wrong to simply show you all of that and not leave it a surprise. So we are going to do that in the next episode. But obviously you can see there I was adding some lights to the exit, and yeah, it's all quite fun. Now we're just diverting this path here because I wanted to do something different with the queue line to what we had down. And, well, I say something different. I wanted to change where the path was so I had more space to do what I wanted to do. And this is the other half of the theming for the queue line. So I know I said earlier, you know, we've got the mausoleum. That's all fun. But what about the outside queue? And this is where the outside queue comes in. Because the idea behind this bit of the queue is that it all takes place kind of while you're walking around this funeral scene, which is it's a fun premise, and it was fun to kind of get in and saw all of this. So we're starting with a hole in the ground, and using this this kind of planter insert, we're just kind of coming in, adding in a layer behind there, and adding in all of these bits before I realise, oh, the hole's a bit too big, let's make it smaller. So we make it smaller, about the size that I would want the size of this this hole in the ground to be, and then just coming in and flattening it all out so we can get the hole in the right place. And there we go. There it is. It looks quite nice. And then just pulling up the outside to make it look a little bit like dirt has been pulled up from the ground. We come in here and we find our lovely gothic plaque, and we place down a headstone, which is quite fun. And as you can see, we've got these coffin pieces. Now, I know this comes from the Wild West set, but it has been a godsend in this area. There's so much theming I can do with a simple coffin within this ride, and it's just working so well to do what it does. Now, going a little bit further on, this funeral needs some seating, so where are we going to get seating from? Well, there's these wooden bracket pieces that I used inside our church. Wooden course pieces that I used inside our church as pews. And I thought I'd take them and I'd do something similar here. So we're getting these in, obviously making benches and pews out of them, because, you know, I thought actually this looks better than trying to make very little chairs. And I know I could get some off the workshop, but where's the fun in that? So we've got our pews here, just copying them back. We've now got the basis of a funeral, which is fun. But where would this be without sort of the I can't remember the technical term for it, but what is it called? I've completely forgotten. The easel that everything sits on. I was going to say it's a eulogy. It's not a eulogy. The eulogy is the bit that's spoken. But this sort of tribute, as it were, I wanted to have something like this sort of be here to kind of make it clear that this is very much a funeral, which is fun. And getting this easel in, and getting these wanted posters. Now this was genius on my part, because it's the closest we've got to anything like this in the game. Just getting it in, it looks slightly silly, but from a distance it looks actually pretty good. And then getting these flowers, making them small and putting them there, it's just perfect. It works exactly the way I wanted it to. So there we go. We have successfully made a funeral. Well, what do we do next? Well, this area needs lighting up, so we come in and we place down some of our square iron lampposts, again from the Western theme, I believe. And then what do we do for the funeral itself? Well, there are these standing torches, which I believe they're either from the mythology theme or the Viking theme, and I thought they'd look quite nice just there as lighting, which is quite fun. But what do we do in terms of the next bit of lighting? Well, we've used these oil lamps throughout the ride, so I thought we'd stick one down there. But what do we do for the rest of it? Well, we're about to find out. I say that as if I'm not the one who made the ride, but there we go. And did all of this earlier, but, you know, it's that sort of thing of, I record these episodes and then I forget what happens in between. So, yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's just more of these iron lampposts, just to add a little bit of variety. And this is something you don't usually see me do in this park, or in any series really, is coming and actually theming and putting lighting in. Actually, that's what we're doing here. Now, putting some gargoyles on the top of the crypt just to make it look a lot nicer, along with that plaque. And we're just going to put a little bit of trim down, just because it looks quite nice to kind of have these bits along here, and it just looks nice. Now, coming inside, we are actually getting in and putting some lights in now, because obviously the dynamic lighting in this game is wonderful. And it means we need to put lights in dark rides and inside spaces. So we're using these hexagonal lamps. It's really fun. We're using a real variety of lighting sources to actually achieve what we want to achieve, and that's quite fun. So putting them in and diving down under the ground into the crypt itself, we're coming in here and just placing down some candles, because I think they look quite nice around this area in general. Now, popping back up top, we are just putting a couple more graves around. It's mostly set dressing at this point. You know, this park is basically done, and I want to thank you all who have been watching, who have been supporting this series. It's been a fun one to kind of sit down and do, and actually see a project from beginning to end in this game, and indeed any Planet game. You know, I've never actually fully completed a park before, or a zoo in Planet Zoo, or just a project in general. I've never really sat down and properly completed any, so actually it's fun to think I've done something, and it's thanks to Yizzle kind of being there, sort of acting like my motivation to get this done and make it look nice and all of that, which is good. So yeah, thank you all for being so supportive. And we are coming up to the end of this time-lapse segment, which isn't necessarily fun, but we're just putting some trees in again, just as a bit of background to make this all look quite nice. So you know, I think all that's really left to say is it has been a pleasure making these time lapses and doing these voiceovers for this series, and I'm sure it'll happen again on another series, but never quite like this. So I will see you in real time in a bit. Okay, well, welcome back to Real Time. For the last time, well, I say for the last time, this is the last time we're coming back here after doing a time-lapse segment. And yes, so in today's episode we have completed this, our lovely Crypt Walker Dark Ride Omnimover down underground. And obviously we've got this whole area, our lovely churchyard, done. Which is fun, because it means that this is the last area of our park completed. And, of course, here we are mourning the loss of the park. Not loss, really new life, because, as we zoom out here, you will see that we have a complete park. Which is fun, it's bittersweet, but it's fun. But that doesn't mean we're done quite yet, as we will be right back in the next episode to take a tour around everything that we've got, give it a look, and make sure it all looks nice. So, I will see you in the next episode. Ta-ta. Roll that outro.